moderation. My name's Justin DeCesare, and like Jose, with me, we are two of the candidates that are running for District 7 San Diego City Council against incumbent Scott Sherman. Scott was obviously asked if he could come here today, but he declined as he did for another debate. So we're very excited to be here. I don't mean to speak for Jose, but I'm sure it's true about both of us. I came to San Diego originally with the United States Navy. I grew up in Massachusetts. I moved here in 2002, and being the first forum we've done in Linda Vista, when I first moved here, I lived about a half a mile that way, right on the other side of Ulrich Street on Westinghouse Ave, and I lived there for a few years. I served most of my time in the USS John C. Stennis. When it got home port changed up to Washington State, I went with it for a year, came back down here to the Naval Computer and Telecommunications Station on North Island, and that's where I finished the rest of my 8 years. I knew I was probably going to make chief in the Navy, which is a good enlisted rank. I wasn't an officer, but once you make that rank, you stay in for 20 years. And at the time, my oldest son had just been born, Anthony, and I had to make the decision whether I stay in for 20 years or I get out and pursue something else. For 2 years, I had been a part-time real estate agent while I was still in the Navy, just helping my friends that were in the Navy with me find their first homes and move, and I really enjoyed it. So I got out of the Navy and I pursued that full-time. I ended up becoming the CEO of a company that had about 35 agents. That's what we grew to. We sold it a few years ago. I wasn't the owner of the company, so I went and now I manage another small independent real estate firm, a residential real estate firm here in town. For the last 2 years, I have been the chair of the Tirisana Planning Group. Our planning group and our community council in Tirisana, the north part of our district, we operate as one body that makes recommendations to the city, as I'm sure many of you are very involved with the Linda Vista group. It was there that I really saw the need for change at our city office and knew that I had to run against Councilman Sherman. We had, a few years ago, a 5,000 person petition brought to us for a dog park. Something that seemingly at a city council office should be one of the easiest things you can figure out how to do. You find some open land, you rope it off, you find some funding for it, you have a dog park. Immediately when it gets to the city, it gets thrown on the back burner for the sake of the special interest that Councilman Sherman is focused on again and again. And that's not where I come from. I come from community groups that actually listen to their residents and try and fix what's wrong, not just focus on how we're going to put 10,000 new units north of Friars Road at Sabita, or how we're going to waste $2 million on a Charger Stadium in Mission Valley that the Chargers say they don't even want. And sure enough, now we have that $2 million gone. It could have gone to updating our community plans, could have gone to rebuilding our senior centers and put back in the libraries. There's no reason things have to change, or things can't change. I think can speak for both myself and Jose, which I know he will say, that running against an incumbent in this town is an interesting battle. These races, people don't want to take them seriously from the very beginning, and what that means is the press doesn't want to put the race out there. And they don't want to let everybody know that there are people running against a sitting city council person. I think it's time we change that, and I think it's time that we actually come to community groups and say, what do you need? How can we make this city better? And not just make decisions from a downtown closed office door, which is what we've had for the last 4 years with Councilman Scott Sherman. I would be happy to say it to his face if he was here, but he refuses to debate us. And I'm very excited about the chance to actually go to work for the city and not just assume that I'm there to make special interest friends happy, which is what we get time and again. So. I've always enjoyed my time, whether it was the vice president of the Kumeyaay Elementary PTA, running a book fair, working at the planning group, being an advisory chair for the Regional Continuum of Care, which is the aggregate body that works with HUD to make sure that the funding that comes in for homelessness is observed for properly. I would like to take that to the city level, and I would like to be able to use my work experience, my leadership experience from the military and in growing two businesses, and actually put it to work for the taxpayers and for the citizens that are working and raising their families in our city. I would love to have your support. I'm looking forward to answering your questions today. Thank you so much for having us and coming out on a beautiful Saturday, and hopefully we'll talk more very, very soon. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Jose Caballero, and I want to reiterate it's a shame that Scott Sherman didn't want to join us in this community discussion today. We are in one of the areas that is really hit hard by development, by infrastructure. And a lot of you are probably thinking, why am I running for office? Well, to really get that, I'm going to tell you where I come from. I come from a small town in Mineral Wells, Texas, outside of Dallas, where I understood what it looks like to grow up in poverty. I grew up in one bedroom in my grandparents' home with my mother and my sister for quite a while until she remarried. During that time, she was working minimum wage at $5.15 an hour. That's what it was in Mineral Wells. And with all of those barriers, we continued to fight and continued to move forward with our lives. And I went through school and I worked extra hard because being a minority in that area, I was segregated because of my last name, Caballero. They put me directly in the ESL. They didn't care about how good English, how much great my English was at that point, even though I didn't even say that correctly. One thing is, I still persevered. I still pushed forward. I still made it, and I got into the prestigious nuclear engineering program for the United States Navy, where I served honorably for 6 years. I did 2 years of the hardest school that the Navy has to offer. After that, I went to the USS Ronald Reagan, where I served 4 years, working hard, 36-hour days often, and I did 4 tours over in the Gulf, in Iraq and Afghanistan. But through all that, I loved serving my country. I loved fighting for us. So I went right down the street to Mesa College, where I did 2 years, followed by 2 years at the SDSU to get my degree in political science. During that time, I got really involved in politics. I was the president and actually founder of the San Diego State University, the College Democrats there. And then from there, I worked for Congresswoman Susan Davis, and I did 3 months in DC. And I also was able to meet Kevin Beiser, where he's our current school board member now, and he believed in my ability to lead. He asked me to be his campaign manager in 2014, and we won that race by 68% of the vote here in our communities. We've walked these neighborhoods. I see what's happening. I know what it's like when rent goes up. I know what it's like when the water bills go up 40%, when we see the privatization, where the electricity bills go up, or when a landlord abuses you and doesn't do something as simple as fix a window. These things are real. These things are happening. These developers that sit in their ivory towers give money to politicians. And what do they expect? They expect to get these contracts, to go ahead and actually go. If you go down, you know there's a development right on the cross street from here. There's 400 units down there, and it's jamming up our traffic in our neighborhood. I do not support building urban density in our neighborhoods. I'm a veteran fighting for you because I know what it's like to fight every day for the things that we deserve. And I will never take money from the people that thrive on our pain, the people who profit on our pain. That's why I'm going to instate rent control when I get in office. That's why I'm going to fight SDG&E and ensure that we have the community and solar panels on our houses and stop trying to let them control where our energy comes from, and actually put in a public pure water system that we have for reuse. So I'm Jose Caballero. I'm a veteran fighting for you, and I hope to get your support. Let's have a fun debate.
So, if anybody has some questions, and I started this myself, I'm Carol, because I wanted people in the city to understand the situation we're going through in our mobile home and in our neighborhoods with the rent going up and the inability to control that. So, because this is city land here,
right.
And the politicians have a way of giving the developers contracts where they make a lot of money and the city doesn't, and this city should be profiting from the land.
Right.
Maybe that's even a good first question to address, and why are we here, and what does it mean? There's obviously a very big discussion in our city right now based on affordable housing and what are the affordable housing options. A lot of that discussion has been around densification and around urbanization, but I think what a lot of people still fail to really address is the fact that mobile home parks provide a good resource for affordable housing and a number of units that people have the ability to get into that they don't in other areas of the city. Obviously, there is always a balance, especially when it comes with private property owners, but luckily, a city council person, even though a lot of the issues regarding mobile home parks and what you see with places like De Anza Cove can be addressed by is state legislation if you have a city council member that's willing to make sure that tenants of mobile home parks are protected and that any landowner is following due process in any changes that they do make and not being felt like they're bullied out and not giving proper notice when things move. I think we should do our best to make sure that we keep these communities as intact as we can and not allow developers to take over and actually protect from, as we were hearing before, making sure that rents don't go up at an inordinate amount where people can't afford them. You know, our income in this city is growing at half the rate of inflation over the last 2 years. Our money is worth half as much as it was a year ago and half as much as it was a year before that. And housing prices continue to go up, rental prices continue to go up, consumer goods prices continue to go up. And neighborhoods like this are still one of the last options people have, that if you have a good owner of a park that makes sure that doesn't happen, you could have a long life. You have people that have lived here for 30 years. You know, so you need a city council person that's willing to fight to make sure that state legislation isn't overlooked and that you have all the information in your hands so your livelihoods are protected. And affordable housing is one of the things that any city council person of any political party in any district needs to talk about. Obviously, as we've seen again with De Anza Cove and the changes there, that's going to start moving inland first, and obviously Linda Vista will be a big part of the discussion there. So obviously without any immediate policy to address, I think it's very important to know that if you elect me as the city council person, you will have an ear in the office that understands your concerns and will work with you as future situations arrive to be able to help.
Thank you.
So we know the issue. Rent's going up at an extraordinary rate. The rent study that just came out recently says that it's going to go up $150 a month, $155 a month until the year 2018. We don't need to just say that there's a problem. We need to start doing things about it. We need to start taking bold steps like instilling rent control. Right now, San Francisco, it's one of the highest rent in the entire state of California. Could you imagine if there wasn't a rent control there? Right now, it's 1.6%. But here, in this area, we're seeing rent go up 5-9% average. Some places are going up 10-30%. We need to talk about the issues and what we're going to do. Because once I get into city council, I'm going to fight every day until we put something in place to protect our residents. We know that the state has legislation that helps us, and we're going to instill that as well. But we need to take bigger steps as the city to instill something. And not only just that, we need to start bringing in more building code inspectors to actually have a hotline where people can call to say, hey, I have a roach infestation, I have mold, can you please inspect this? And have somebody there within 28 to 48 hours to go to your homes to say this is the problem. Because we need people that are going to be fighting for us, because we cannot trust our landlords anymore. Because they're not going to our doorsteps, they're not living in our homes, they care about the profits. I bring solutions to the issues because we all know it's hard, and it's extremely hard. So we need to put in place things that work, and we need to put in things that actually are going to do something. And that's the kind of city council member you're going to have. You're not just going to have my ear, you're also going to have my solutions that we're going to come together with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Housekeeping real quick, you were both right at 2 minutes. Do you want to stick with
I think
that?
that's
Yeah,
great.
good. That was a good size answer.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, man.
Okay.
I have a question. Sebastian Hernandez, small business owner. Justin, I don't really know anything about you. You said leadership, you got it from the military, from the Navy. What is your take on leadership, and how does that apply to politics?
Of course, I think leadership itself to me really means the ability to not lead from the top and actually lead from the ground level. I think the biggest problem that we see with people that believe they're leaders just because they're in a position of leadership is that they think they have all the answers, and that's not always true. Leadership comes from knowing that the people that work with you, maybe it's because of the fact of the industry I'm in. I've been in the real estate industry. A lot of people are independent contractors that work with me, and I'm not their boss. I am there to help train them and help guide them and move them forward. But I've noticed in a lot of great companies and in the military that the ability to take the problems and the suggestions people have and not immediately think that they're wrong just because they don't like the way you're doing something is important. I think that's really what separates me from Councilman Sherman. A specific example, I'm going to try and keep this right at 2 minutes, but about a year ago we had a problem with a charter school that was trying to open up in our district, and that charter school had a meeting at our planning group where about 250 residents came to voice their concerns. It was 35 feet from a fire station opening. There was only one ingress and egress point for the fire people to be able to get out and what have you. And what ended up happening was that the charter school couldn't meet city guidelines, They went to another location in the Croc Center. They opened up the school work, the process work. Mr. Sherman's first response was to try and change the land use code to take the conditional use permitting requirement away from charter schools entirely. And that was passed about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So now charter schools that want a land use permit in the city don't actually have to go through a traffic study review. They don't have to go through a safety review for the land use problems, anything else that comes with a normal city permit. He didn't come to one of our city council meetings, and when he announced his plan to try and change that, he also didn't come back to any of the community meetings to say, hey, this is my plan. And even if you don't agree with me, I want to tell you what I'm doing and hear your concerns. I think one thing about me is people in this room are not always going to agree with me, and I'm not always going to agree with you, and that's true about whoever you elect. I think there's no doubt about that. But the willingness to stand and say, here's my plan, here's what I want to do, tell me how we can make that plan better and how we can come to agreements and we can build the city better together, that's what real leadership is. The ability to have a real conversation and not shut your ears off just so you don't look bad in front of a lot of other people.
So we all know Scott Sherman isn't doing the job. He's not even here today. You know, we know that for sure. Leadership. What that means is you're willing to take everybody on. And I was in the Navy and I know what it's like to lead a group of people on the deck plates to actually get a job done. But when you think of leadership, you're really saying to somebody that, hey, I'm going to stand for you. I'm going to do everything in the best interest of what we deserve together. Coming up and saying, let's bring everybody to the table to hear every point of view, and let's come with a common sense solution to the problems that are affecting all of us. That's the type of leadership that I bring to the table. That's the type of leadership that we deserve. And Justin is right. When we have leaders that go in and say, I got the answers to all these solutions. I have the answers because I've got all this money to put a fancy mail piece in your mailbox. That's leadership. That is not leadership. Leadership is going to the doorstep and actually asking you, what's going on? What can we do to help you? What is it take to make your life livable, to be free and not have to worry about things like rent? Like, that's leadership. To stand up against the special interest. To stand up against the big money that says we can't have it because it's never been that way before. Well, it's time to stand up and say, we're going to get it because we have a following and a movement here. And this movement is stronger than any status quo has. And we're going to break down barriers, and that's what it takes to be a leader. To stand with a backbone fighting for the community.
I am concerned about what to do about the homeless. The paper today said there are even more on the street. For both of you, I'd like to know what you think. It's a huge problem, and they just put in all those rocks under the bridge where people tried to get out of the rain, and so those people just have to go somewhere else. There are no restrooms, there's nowhere to go, and there's no affordable housing.
Right.
And anyway,
we need a new.
I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, everybody knows it's like, people see it every day. Probably coming here or going out, you'll see somebody panhandling, right? And with the rocks, that costs the city about what it would cost to house 4 people in affordable housing. That's how much those rocks cost. That is what the solutions they're trying to come up with are. We have an ability to solve our homelessness issues. Las Vegas has done it, Salt Lake City is working on it, and they're doing a really great job. There's states all over the place that are actually making real results. So we need rapid housing. We need to allow to ensure that people have a place to sleep, because that's their dignity. The moment you're not looking for a place to rest your head, you can actually start thinking about where your life is. Start thinking about the drug addiction, or maybe even thinking about considering maybe I have a mental illness and I actually have those services. But this is a two-pronged approach. We need to also take on solutions like what Albuquerque, New Mexico is doing, where they actually drive around in vans, the city does, it drives around in vans and trucks, And they actually ask the people on the street, hey, do you want a job? We'll give you $9 cash an hour. They actually go and they do city beautification. They go and they clean up the streets. They go clear brush. They do what they need to do. At the end of the day, they get an envelope full of cash, a warm meal, and access to city services. And those city services could be that rapid housing to get them a bed to sleep in for that night as well for the hard work that they've done. These are the solutions that we can do and solve homelessness issues. Because obviously what we're doing now isn't working. And what we have to do is come up with new approaches that actually solve the issue to have people in San Diego live with dignity, just like any human, because we have, some of us have been there where we're probably just a step away from homelessness. So what we have to do is create that solution so we cannot be afraid.
You know, when I served on the regional continuum of care, what that body actually does is, so the HUD gives every region, big metropolitan region every year some money to try and fix homelessness. Here last year, our big planning grant was about $16 million from HUD. And what that body does is it ensures that money that's coming out when it's going to different providers. That the agency itself doesn't actually fix homelessness. It's there to make sure that all the providers that are going through have access to what they need. One of the biggest issues we have in San Diego is we have so many providers to try and help homelessness, but they're all very, very specialized. And in as such, you'll have to go to one, and let's say you have to have come from a domestic violence home, and those are the only type of people they take. It's a great organization, that shouldn't be a bad thing, but you have another one that's for juvenile kids on the street. And a lot of the times it's hard for them to coordinate. So we need to start by working on the coordination where the city as a whole knows when they do have somebody that's seeking for solutions, they know where to get them first. We do need to focus on a housing first solution. We don't have enough places to actually house the homeless population. There are great cities that have done work with the little mini cottages to get people in overnight. I do like the plans about trying to find people that are able to work. I don't think that giving someone an envelope of cash if they have a substance abuse problem at the end of the day is necessarily the best approach. But there are ways to do it. It would take a lot of coordination with different entities, but tying it to an EBT card or something else that they could actually use for sustenance may work. But again, this is not a problem that is going to solve itself overnight. I don't think anybody would say it's going to. I think the issue we have right now is, one, finding places for them to go and not taking out entire tent cities the day before an El Nino event happens, realizing there's dignity in homelessness, and realizing that if we fund the research to get people off the streets and where we can find ways to make sure that they have beds, then we have a good start.
You both kind of mentioned the problem of drug addiction and mental illness in the homeless population, and I wonder if either of you have a specific idea to deal with that aspect.
You know, I don't. I think everybody in this room has known somebody that's become a victim of drug addiction, of substance abuse, of possibly death from that situation, as I have myself. But I am not I wouldn't claim to be a social worker or a mental health expert or what leads people to addiction. I think what cities can do and what any municipality has the ability to do is fund research locally and fund providers locally that have that expertise to be able to hopefully bring people in and give them a chance at recovery and getting back into normal society. I think as a city council person, I assure everybody here that there would never be a time when somebody would come in for any type of social program like that, or gun buyback programs, or anything that helps reduce violence, helps reduce substance abuse, helps reduce crime, that I would never think we shouldn't be funding. And making sure the right people with the right answers, like working with the County and Health and Human Services, who does a lot of great work in that respect, have what they need to be able to make the work go forward.
There's a lot of studies out there, and they show the first step is decriminalizing. When it comes down to it, we're just putting people in jail with drug addictions, with mental illnesses. Here in our city, we're arresting our black and brown community members, and we are just throwing them in jail. It's like, oh, you got a drug addiction, you're going to go. And then what happens? They go back into the street and back into the same solution. The first step is to treat this like a mental illness issue. I mean, a medical problem. Sorry, medical issue. If you got a drug addiction, it's not because you're just so addicted to drugs and you just got to have them. These people get put into situations because of whatever reason or whatever walk of life they got into. If you take a look at countries like Portugal that has taken these steps and actually decriminalized a lot of these drugs that actually put them there, they are actually had a zero increase in crime and violence, and they're actually treating these people's addictions and actually helping them. These studies are out there. We know the solutions, and that's simple. Treat people with dignity and respect, and actually take compassion for these people and stop dropping the hammer. We need to stop dropping the hammer and start bracing people and saying, you're hurt. There is something wrong. We're here to help. And that's what we need to do. We need to expand our programs. We need to start talking about solutions like, let's start coming in with facilities. Let's start putting money into the medical side of it rather than the criminal side of it. Those are the plans that we have to start discussing, because everybody sees that these are the things that are happening in our city. So what we got to do is we got to start taking drastic steps to change a problem that is existent in our communities. And the only way we're going to do that is to basically solve it like it's a medical issue.
I hear a lot of positive.
He's got a question.
My name is Salvador. My neighborhood is Mission Valley. I think the big issue that is happening there is, of course, the stadium, maybe in the whole city. It's a two-part question. The first part is, what's your position now on the stadium? Do you want to see it go? Do you want to see it stay? What are you fighting for? The second part is, assuming that nothing's, or the decision's been made and charges are leaving, or they're going to move the stadium to downtown. What's your plan and position to do, or what to do with the property there?
Can I answer this one first? So, I recently, Times of San Diego released a piece that I wrote about what my plan is for Mission Valley, and I think the very first step is creating a Mission Valley Advisory Council that actually has some discussion on what's going to happen in their neighborhood, like we're seeing with East Village, or even over here with the Morena plan for the walk path. I don't support putting the stadium in Mission Valley. I am infuriated that we wasted $2 million on an environmental impact report that was there as a guise to sell off city taxpayer-owned land to put up new residential development. We know that development's a very important issue that we have in our city, but with that said, we have a space in our city that we have kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create a unique experience for all San Diegans to actually be able to use and enjoy, no matter what that comes from. Mission Valley itself is already completely overdeveloped. We put all the development that was going to go in there in the north side of Friars Road with no access to transit lines, and it's just put more congestion on Friars Road. Now, there are a lot of plans out there, like Donna Frank Hoiberg Citizens Initiative, and no matter what you think of that plan itself, I think we can take some of the environmental provisions that they've put in that plan to be able to actually make sure what do we do with Mission Valley. I want to make sure that the 22 acres directly contiguous to the river remain protected open space and protect the watershed going into coming out to the ocean beach. I want to make sure that whatever's built there has a bike path that people can enjoy, that there is open space and recreation for families. I do not think that we should put any more residential development in Mission Valley. I do think that, I don't know enough about JMI Realty's plan for SDSU as well as the Miniature Stadium to really take a stand on it. There hasn't been a financing plan yet. Who's going to actually pay for the city-owned land? Is it going to be granted? I like the idea of putting San Diego State's Campus West over there and making sure that it works, but before I would support a specific plan on that, which I'm leaning to like the way it looks, I would want to see how we would actually pay for it.
From the beginning, I've been against the Charter Stadium. I actually had a petition go out. We got about 500 signatures on that petition, just in case they try to continue to build on that land. I'm also against the convadium monstrosity that's happening in downtown, where they're trying to get us on the hook for $1.1 billion. And that's why they're paying out-of-state petitioners and out-of-city petitioners by the charter plan to actually raise that and actually put that on the ballot, which is a complete disaster. Now, to get back to that's how simple it is. There's no public money, not a dime, not a cent for the Charter Stadium. Now, as far as the land itself, I also think that SDSU should expand on that region and we turn that river area into a river park, because we deserve a beautiful green space in Mission Valley. We need to be able to have bike lanes that go to there. We can create another beautiful tourist attraction here in San Diego. We can have the Balboa River Park, right? It would be beautiful and people would come here for that. And I think people would come to that more likely to come to that than the Chargers game. So I'm also against all development in that area for when it comes to residential areas as well. I'm also against creating more density in these areas that are our neighborhoods as well. That was on a KPBS density in our neighborhoods. That ruins the fabrics of our community, right? And you should read that KPBS article and take a look on where all the candidates stand on that. When it comes to public money, I'm fiscally responsible. We shouldn't be giving away millions of dollars. And when it comes to that San Diego state plan, I don't want to give that land for free. They can pay for it as well. So that's how we pay for things.
You want to know something funny?
Yeah.
Outside of Vaughn's yesterday, the petition gatherer for the Chargers plan to put the Convadium downtown, which is would raise the transient occupancy tax at hotels, and a lot of that money would go to the Chargers Stadium itself, was the same signature gatherer that was there signing Corey Briggs and Donna Fry's citizens initiative to raise the TOT tax but give the money back to infrastructure. And they plans have the same name and they have the same premise of raising the tax, but the money would go to different things. I mean, it's going, if they both get on the ballot, it's going to be a really confusing November.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny, sorry.
Yeah, no, he's right. Like, that's what they're doing. They've already spent $1 million on these petitioners from out of state. Yeah, the petitioners. They're very aggressive and they're
chasing people down to their cars even when they're like, no,
exactly.
no.
They said no, they wanted to.
That's what big money buys you. It buys you democracy, and we got to stop that.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I was really upset when I saw the north side of Friars Road being developed.
Right.
We have enough traffic and problems, but my main concern is how does the city provide water in a state, in a county that is in drought? How does the city provide water to that many new residents?
Absolutely. And you know, first of all, you're right. The UT actually did a traffic study that said if we go ahead and build that Civita complex in the quarry area right there, that without a major trolley line, it would double the amount of traffic. Unfortunately, they were right. You can go down the Friars Road at 3 to 6 and you can see it with your own eyes,
Already?
right? Absolutely. And it's not even completed yet.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the scary part. Now, when you come to the water issue, we had an opportunity in this city a few years ago to actually put in a pure water wastewater treatment facility that would provide us 1/3 of our water supply for our city. But instead, the city decided to go with the private industry, Poseidon, which is the DeCesare plant. That is the reason why our water rates are going up 40%. You know, these are the things that are happening. Now, what we need to do is not only, because water is such an issue, we need to give subsidies to people who want to put in rain barrels. We had a pilot program in this city that worked very effectively. They didn't increase that. They didn't continue that. We need to create a storm drain collection system that actually makes sure that we catch the water when it rains here instead of flooding our homes and cars. We also could put in a new type of asphalt. Now I'm saying asphalt, how does that deal with water? Well, there is a new form of asphalt that's porous.
Yep.
And it will literally rain right through and actually restore our groundwater watersheds. Those are the solutions that we need to bring. This is the 21st century. We can do things now that could never been done before, like creating clean, pure water from waste to be able to capture with rain barrels and even restore our watersheds. So that's the type of initiatives that we need to do because water diversity is important. Now, I guess you want to ask a follow-up, but I should give him a chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Follow-up
Of course,
in case,
of course.
Yeah.
in case Justin has an answer.
Yes.
Is there a way of reclaiming water from seawater or from wastewater and designating it for a specific use? For example, I'm not sure I want to drink that water.
Right.
Can it go to agriculture?
Do you mean like purple pipe?
I don't know.
Yeah, that term is like it's recycled water. That's what it is. Well, I'll follow up if you don't mind. On that, yeah. On the pure water system, I understand that it can be a little icky to think about like, oh yeah, I'm drinking water that's been purified, but really this water is cleaner than our normal water that's coming out of our faucets. You know.
I filter that.
Yeah, exactly, right, and yeah, so right now, our water quality in this country, period, is going in the tubes. In fact, they say 20% of our water in the country is contaminated with lead. And then you have most of our water in the country has pharmaceuticals like antibiotics, antipsychotics that are going into our water. In fact, I trust the pure water from the wastewater more than I would our own tap water. So I purify my own water as well.
Yeah.
So I trust it. I would drink it, and if you want me to take the first glass when I'm in office, I will do it for you.
I just want you to make it happen.
I will, absolutely.
I guess I don't believe they're putting antipsychotics in our water, but
People are.
I do think, and I agree, as I said before, about the north side of Friars Road, and I think with the Granville Community Update Plan that's already been approved, that is going to increase density in Granville. My hope is that they do not focus it on the north side of Mission Gorge, which is the same problem, and if they are going to bring it in, they bring it to the south side that at least does allow some transit lines. It's going to be bad, nonetheless. It's already been approved though, and it's going to go through. So if they can do it in a way that doesn't put more cars on the road, great. I think there's a lot I could speak about that and reducing parking requirements so people will buy houses that don't have cars that do use transit lines. But for the water directly, the water rate increase that recently happened was one of the hardest decisions I think our city council made in a long time where it affects. And there was two people that voted against it. One was Councilman Scott Sherman and one was Councilman David Alvarez. And they voted for it for very different reasons. Mr. Alvarez voted for it because of the socioeconomic reasons of what it was going to mean for a low-income family. Scott Sherman because he didn't want his Navajo neighbors to have to complain to him that his water was costing too much. Now that we have that tax increase, which may have not been an easy increase, we need to do all we can to make sure that money's not going back into the bureaucracy of the system and actually putting potable reuse, which would bring what right now is only purple pipe water. It would actually put the infrastructure that we could have in place so that potable reuse water could actually be used for drinking. I know a lot of people that have gone through the Water Academy where they actually learn what it does, learns that it's clear. Everybody that goes through it, no matter how much from the very beginning, they don't like the idea of the Public Utilities has changed it from toilet to tap to showers to flowers now. Is the new name for it. It's a little bit easier.
Our pure water.
Yeah, our pure water. But I think focusing on the infrastructure there is going to be the best investment San Diego can make in making sure that there are water access to everybody here in the city is done in a way that doesn't put us at the behest of whoever's selling us our water from other areas, which is going to be a big
Or at
problem.
risk for contamination.
Yeah, or at risk for
because of
contamination.
Plant failure.
Trying to do as a city council person. We don't go there and we don't have all the answers. We don't know everything, but I would like to
I
think.
respect that more.
Yeah.
To say I don't know the answer,
Right, of
but I'll
course.
find out.
But I think you have a duty to know that we are trying to recruit and retain, and we need to pay well city employees that have more answers than the politically elected leaders
That's
of our
what we
city who are
had
here.
on
But-
talked
I know.
about that.
But knowing that both your immediate staff as well as city staff that has it are a great resource for that knowledge to make the right decision when it does come in front of you.
Absolutely. When I was a reactor operator of Boise USS Ronald Reagan, I had to review the documents. I had to read every line. I had to look at every number to make sure that those things were going to start right. Because if they didn't, you can cause serious problems. So you have to learn from the experts, like yourself. Bring them to the table and say, hey, all right, what's the state of the city? Right? Because we need to understand every little part that happens. And that's why I applaud you for being able to work for the city for so long and make that happen and know so much. Your sage advice is the advice I want at my table.
But the problem is, and my question to you is, what are you going to do?
I'm going to read what's put in front of me. There's a lesson learned today. I think that will be my entire answer.
Absolutely. Going line by line, making sure that everything happens. We can't let anything go by. Read what's in front of us. Yeah, exactly.
So isn't this the best argument you can think of for not privatizing?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the groups that's endorsed my campaign is the Municipal Employees Association, which is the White Collar Cities Union. And one of their tenets, probably one of the reasons they decided to endorse me is I don't support managed competition at all. I think businesses, and I say this as a business person, even though Mr. Sherman will come up to you and say he's a business person and he knows how it works. Cities and businesses are not run the same way. They're not the same entities. One's designed to give services and infrastructure back to the community. One's designed to make a profit. That's not what a city is there for. So giving our tax dollars to a private enterprise is going to try and get them to make a profit and not actually put that money to work to give us the best services possible. There are each individual project you could come up with would have their own reasons, but I think as on a macro level, on a very big level, what I could say is actually putting the city back to work and making sure that the city has its resources and the city's the one doing the job. We know that we can get it done correctly as a city, and we need to stop this anger at the city and this, government's a terrible thing. Government can be a good thing if we stop trying to not let it work for us and stop trying to intervene and actually say this can be good. And so yes, I agree. Managed competition's bad in every way.
Yeah, I'm right there with them. When it comes down to it, we need to protect the employees that manage and run our city, that put the years and time. We need to readdress the pension, Prop B. We need to have the city stop appealing that and start from scratch and start over and do something that works for all of us. We are at the point right now where we're starting to privatize our public services, like the water, right? We actually need to start saying, take away certain powers from the private industry like Sempra or SDG&E, right? Where they say, we get to choose where your energy is coming from, right? We need to say, all right, you're done with that. We should control it with community choice aggregation and say, we as a city get to choose where our energy comes from. Solar power. We're sunny San Diego. We can have the sun. Look at this day. Why isn't there solar panels everywhere? Right? This is absurd. They're making record profits and they have record rates. What is going on? And that is why I support and ensure that we do make those services public. 100%. And I want to support the public employees just as much as any one of us. And that's what we're going to fight for, and we're going to make sure we have those public industries.
So San Diego's got a pretty big conservative Republican demographic. Everybody knows that. Who lives in San Diego. We're all talking about, I hope we're all Democrats here.
Yeah, it sounds like
we're all talking about these ideas and plans and everything that we want to see happening. And I think we have to be elected first,
Right.
And what are you guys advocating? I mean, just in the elections of the past year for the primaries and caucuses, we've seen the awakening, not just on the Democratic side, but on the Republican side, of these more to the right and more to the left parties or groups of people, Where do you stand with that? And what are you advocating? What are you doing to awaken, that demographic within the Democrats, the Democratic community, Because at the end of the day, we're going to talk about everything that needs to happen, but we need everybody to get out and vote, So what are you doing to really awaken people, I'm a father, and I from the time I turned 18, I went out and, signed up as a Democrat. I've been a Democrat since I was 18. So I was in the Navy too, so I understand what all that is. I have a 16-year-old son, and I knew, I found out Bernie Sanders was coming to town like a day before, and I didn't want to tell him because he's my son, he's a hardcore Democrat, and I didn't tell him that, but the very next day from school he texted me, he said, Dad, Bernie's going to be in town today. Come pick me up during lunch. And I'm like, oh crap, I work from home, I'm fortunate enough to work from home. And so I ran to his school, went to his office, checked him out, told nobody felt the school this, but told him he had a demo appointment, and I took him to the Bernie Sanders.
Awesome.
That's what I'm doing too. I'm 43, he's 16. I'm trying to fill that gap of teaching, he's my son, but teaching the youth or teaching everybody that's going to ultimately make up the demographic of our party. What are you guys doing for that? Where do you guys stand? Are you a traditional establishment Democrat? Do you lean more to the left? I mean, what are you guys' positions?
I think it's funny you say that, and I know the question is something that a lot of people would like to be able to say, no, yes, I am the Democratic Party endorsed candidate. I am very proud to be a Democrat. I think our district's an interesting one. So we have a 4% Democratic advantage, close to 30% of Republicans, and then just under that decline of states. I think one of the ways in which me and Jose differ, and this isn't a bad thing, it's just our two different styles, is I I don't think at the local level when you're running for a district such as this that there is any reason to get involved in a single presidential campaign. I think that it's very important to be able to know that your ideas could work at the city level for somebody, and somebody has a completely different presidential choice than you, and you're going to be alienating them by talking too much about it. Now, I'm happy to say I'm voting for Hillary, but I'm not going to be out there campaigning for her because I want to actually focus on the issues that are wrong in my district. And again, you know, I think there are different ways of doing it. I think we energize people by, our first battle is making sure that people know that we have a race here and that they don't have to accept Scott Sherman. You know, one of the things about the Democratic Party in this town is it's a very long process. And, you know, myself and Jose have both gone through it over the last 9 months. And it comes to the very end when they finally make their endorsements. We didn't even know, you know, who the Democratic candidate was. We're both Democrats right here, but I think it's just about talking to the people in the district. And I think if enough, even the Republicans and even the decline of state people, if they hear that we want to actually listen to their concerns and that that's how we're going to make our decisions, they're going to show up to the polls. It's not about just telling them like how progressive we are or how, you know, Scott Sherman telling them how conservative he is. I don't think I'm naive to think that people don't want that anymore. And we're sick of the media, and we're sick of the hate, and we're sick of the arguments, and we're better than Congress, and we're better than the Senate, and we're better than what we're hearing at the yelling on TV over the last seemingly 2.5 years of this presidential campaign. I think everybody's sick and tired of it, and we can actually do better by meeting here in rooms like this and focusing on the issues at hand and actually working from that perspective.
So, I openly endorse Bernie Sanders, and I have from day one. The second he said, I'm running, in the platforms that he stood for about standing up against corporate greed, about standing up for the people, saying that big money is the problem in politics. I don't have the Democratic Party endorsement. I don't care. Because I got the community club endorsements. Such as, I got 6 of the community club endorsements here in San Diego. And I also have the Green Party. Why? Because they endorse me. Because they see what I do. I don't spend all my time shaking hands with the people, the party elites, all the people that say, you have to gain my favor, you have to gain my favor. No, I'm done with that. What we do is we actually go to the streets and talk to people. Taking Bernie Sanders' message of a progressive, better San Diego that works for everybody, right? That's what leadership is. Leadership is standing in front and saying, hey, I'm going to take this risk because the values that I stand for are that important. Like your son. Your son cares about Bernie Sanders so much that he asked you to take him home from school, right? To go and stand in line for 4 hours, right? Because there was 2,000 people there, or 20,000 people there roughly, or that's what they say anyway. And that's the movement that I'm sparking up, right? Because the people that I talk to at the door are excited about politics for the first time. People are voting for the first time that have never voted before because they see a possibility for something real. Something that can actually bring change to the city. Something that will be like, well, should we go with the same old, same old? Should we go with the person that has the endorsement of the party, the same person that basically gets the big money and raises all this money and has the same consultants that all the other candidates and the politicians that are currently hurting our city have? No. We need a change. And that's what I run on. I run on a change because that change is real. Because that change stops the rents from going up. That change stops SDG&E from continuing to build gas power plants instead of putting solar panels on these homes. Those changes are the revolutionary changes that we, as the city, knows. Because I'm a revolutionary. I'm a person that says enough is enough and we can do better. And I'm going to stand by those values 100%. That's what it's about in our communities. That's what I bring. I don't go to the door saying I support Bernie Sanders. I go to the door saying I'm going to fight for you because it matters. It's important. But if somebody asks me, I have nothing to hide. I will let them know what it's about and why I stand in front of their doors. That's who I am. And if it's risky, then I do it.
That sounds like probably a good place to do our closing.
Yeah, I guess it's already, oh yeah.
Just an announcement, somebody.
One thing that is so exciting is when you start seeing the people and they having the concerns and having amazing, people in the room that say, hey, this is the issues. That's great. I love it. I have been a person that has been working my entire life, and I've worked and fought for everything I've had from the very beginning when I was a little kid. I have never had anything given to me. I've had to fight for everything. When we look at the city council we look at all these people who sit there in their chairs and they sit in the dais and they're saying, we're going to rule over the city and we're going to make the best decisions. But like Justice said, who's Scott Sherman? What has he actually done? Right? What has he done for you, and when's the last time you shook his hand? You know, we are here to actually fight. Our campaign is doing great. We're getting our message out. You saw my signs probably around the neighborhood already, you know? Our campaign's doing it. We are going out door to door, phone calls, and we're raising $5, $10, $20 donations from people like yourselves. This is how we're winning this race, and that's why I love the fact that I don't have the Democratic Party endorsement. Why? Because I'm not accountable to them. I'm only accountable to you. Now, I'm an independent Democrat. I have Democratic club endorsements, but that doesn't matter because that doesn't win you an election. What wins you an election is when I go to your door and ask you what's going on, right? That's what wins an election. That's what actually makes the difference in our communities. It's not about how much money you can raise. It's not about how many names you can put on a piece of mail. It's about what you're going to do. In this debate, we talked about solutions. We talked about solutions to real life problems that affect us every day, like rent cost, electricity and water, and infrastructure. Solutions that I am only accountable to answer to you guys. Because I see this as a job interview. I'm not asking for your vote. I have to earn it. You have to say, I want you to represent me, which is the highest and most humbling thing anybody could say to me. And that's what I will always be. My door will always be open. We're going to build a community district office right here in our district. Because that's where people are, and I'm going to be there every Friday when I get elected, where my door is always open. That is the type of council people we deserve. Enough with the shut doors and unanswered phone calls and unanswered emails. That's got to stop. Because if you can't represent your community that you live in, then why are you even there? Let's stop answering to big donors, and let's start answering to the people who are donating small amounts every day because they actually want change. And that's who I am. I'm Jose Caballero. And I will fight as hard for you as I had to fight from the day I was born. Because I'm a veteran fighting for you. Period. And no one can ever change that. And I will always continue to fight. Because that's what we deserve. Because enough is enough. We have and deserve a better San Diego. Thank you.